Well, first of all, we've been using self-reported data for a long time, including self-reported data from panels, where the actual response rate of the NTAB sample divided by the pre-designated sample is less than 50%. So we're actually getting data from half the population, but we don't know which half, like that old John Wanamaker quote. So everything's on the base of that. We're conforming everything else to those panels. So even though we got big data, we move the big data. I mean, we don't, TRA doesn't, but others conventionally move the big data findings so that it agrees with, for example, Nielsen's 18,000 home panel, which is all based on research cooperators, when actually sometimes big data might be more accurate. So that's one thing we have to solve right away. Then we've got silo problems. I mean, we've got a lot of things that have to be solved quickly.
Hello, my name is Lev Mason. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AYTL.com. This is Ask Your Target Market. And my answer to this question is that I think in the upcoming years, we as market researchers and as the industry will see more and more challenges and advantages of analyzing much deeper layers of information and aggregating them and making judgments not only on self-reported stuff, not only on listening to the social media buzz, not only on tracking and clicks online, but on an aggregate of all that wealth of information into something coherent that brands can act upon. I think it increases the challenge for market researchers, but in the end it provides so much deeper understanding of what we as consumers are really doing in our daily life and what we are prepared to spend on what and when.
One is making sure that folks in research are aligned with their business leaders and better understanding their challenges, and even better staying ahead of their challenges so they can, work side by side with the business leaders. From a strict, research perspective, is really trying to make sense of all the feedback that they're getting from both secondary and primary research. Really trying to understand big data and really, figuring out ways of merging the various data sets together to really help their business leaders make cogent decisions going forward.
Obviously, there's a plethora, or maybe even a surfeit of topics that really bubble up to the top. I'm just going to give you a personal preference. It doesn't reflect ARF, it just reflects me. I think that market mix modeling is at the very top of the list because so many marketers rely on them. I think the challenge is not that the market mix modelers are doing anything incorrect, it's just that the business is evolving. The number of platforms and venues is evolving so quickly that for them to keep up, especially on the media inputs, that's my specialty, is what I think is tops.
I think that probably the greatest challenge facing the industry as a whole going forward is wrapped up in the question of how do we remain relevant to clients as their businesses and the way they communicate with their audiences moves into new areas, into new domains. We're at a time when it's harder and harder for clients to maintain differentiation between themselves and their competition at a product level. You can actually measure points of difference, and they are minuscule and they're not sustainable. So differentiation becomes more a thing about the brand and the relationship, the connections that the brand can make with their target audiences. That implies an array of different types of metrics that frankly we're not yet systematically measuring at scale. Things like USA touchpoints, things like other cross-platform propositions are in the right direction. The limitation with the cross-platform media ones are obviously they only address media. USA touchpoints is fine in that it delivers context, but that's more about predicting and planning. It's not about measuring outputs and efficacy of communications. And I think that's an area where the industry as a whole really needs to start moving in order to keep up with the direction that clients are having to go. Clients aren't going to ditch mass media campaigns, but they're investing more and more in the kind of campaigns that really don't relate to the typical media activity we've seen to date, but they're very much about building resonant, sustainable relationships with their target audiences, and that's what we're going to need to measure going forward.
Well, the biggest research challenge today, I really think, is measurement at scale. You know, increasingly we have fragmentation, and we thought that 500 cable channels was fragmentation, and then the internet environment came at us, and it's caused geometrically increase in fragmented media use. When we start introducing addressable advertising and interactive TV and interactions with the advertising, you take these audiences to individual creative executions, and then you're taking a portion of those audiences who are actually, delivering on the interactive capability. So we just need massive scale to measure these kinds of new opportunities in advertising going forward.
Embracing the contradictions of the human condition.
Have a real measurement of everything, of every consumption, anywhere. Nobody knows where it is yet.
So I think the biggest research challenge today is to do accurate measurement of the audiences for all media, the duplication between them, and just really capturing all the media usage that goes on and all the advertising exposure.
The greatest research problem we need to answer today. I guess in a nutshell, I think it's figuring out how to integrate big data solutions with traditional research tools, because consumer behavior, media consumption is becoming more and more granular and fragmented. People want to know more and more things, how you're using digital media, how you're using traditional media, how you're using tablets, phones, social media. And at the same time, and let's get all this data from a single source. But at this point, it's impossible to get all the data you need from one pool of respondents. Fusion has been a popular technique for integrating databases, but there's some questions I think about Fusion. But it's like technology takes with one hand, but it gives with the other. So there's all sorts of big data opportunities to solve research problems. Like the best example is set-top box data, but there's a lot of other examples too.
So I think the biggest issue that we have to address to prepare ourselves for the future is to really understand the way that people's media behaviors are changing. They're changing so quickly, and I think they're changing faster than we're getting information about how those changes are affecting the way that we communicate to people, what their uses and gratifications are, and the way that communication affects their image and impression of brands. We have to devote a lot more time and effort and money to really understand that.